Hello and welcome to our webinar exploring onshore Southern Africa. So our speaker today is Robin Sutherland, who's joining us from Cape Town. My name is Carl Jeffrey from Finding Petroleum in London. So we're going to hear today about exploration developments in Namibia, South Africa and Zimbabwe. Our speaker Robin holds a number of different exploration positions, including technical lead with Monitor Exploration of London.
So let's focus in on Namibia. In the north, we have the Owambo Basin, and in the center of the country, the Nama Basin. So Monitor, or MEL as we call it, Monitor Exploration Limited, and Recon, so Monitor are here and Recon are here, are the most active explorers with ongoing programs of work. But there's other companies such as Babeka, Exita, Elephant Oil, and Apprentice, all hold acreage in that area. We like to think that we're right in the heart of the basin. This is where the kitchen is, this is where the action is, we have structure, but we'll get into more detail on that. There's a bit of a history of Recon, if anyone's been watching. It started as a pure Permian play, expecting 5 to 6 kilometers of Permian Basin. That's not what it is, but it's been very interesting to see what it really is. And then in the Nama Basin, in the center of the country, and Windhoek is round about here, the capital, Monitor have negotiated these two blocks. We're about to sign a petroleum agreement on those. Some similarities to the Owambo Basin, also some differences. And there's a large reconnaissance license area here as well. All the gray hashed areas are actually under application at the moment. Although this is an August 2023 map, I don't believe there's been any movement on those. So who's Monitor? It's a privately held company, works solely in Namibia at the moment. It holds 55% in this PEL 93, which is the pink block. As Carl said, we're on a rail line, we're on good roads, we have very easy access because there is excellent infrastructure in Namibia. It's a massive country. Each of these blocks is more than 100 kilometers wide, as that's a degree by a degree. So this area is 18,500 square kilometers. As I say, we hold 55%. We were recently joined by 88 Energy out of Australia, who are funding this year's 2D seismic program to earn equity in the block and have options to go up further and drill wells. We also have this block in the Nama where we've negotiated very favorable terms. And how we explore is we have a sister company called Geodynamics Worldwide, owned by the same majority shareholder, which is a specialist in onshore exploration, remote sensing, passive seismics, magnetotellurics, geochem, everything but conventional 2D, 3D seismic surveys. So we have numerous large, potentially hydrocarbon-bearing structures, we've got easy access, and we're far from populated and wildlife areas. We are next to the Toshal National Park. Kruger slips off my tongue very too easily. But we don't impact on that at all. Let me move on to the next one. So why the Owambo Basin? Many of you have never seen it, I'm sure. It's not your normal tertiary Cretaceous West African play here. We're talking Neoproterozoic basin. It's a very deep basin, at least 6 kilometers, and it has several intervals of source rocks. It has several potential reservoirs, which have been sampled in outcrop, because as you can see, there's a lot of structure here. What is right at the bottom here is on surface and in fact disappears to the south. There's a thick sand cover called the Kalahari Formation, which has led to limited exploration because you can't see much through that. And then this Permian layer, which Recon were exploring initially. And they drilled this 6-2 well, and they found hundreds of meters of oil shows. They drilled it as a stratigraphic well on aeromagnetic data and managed to have hundreds of meters of oil and gas shows through the base of the Permian and into the Owambo proper, into the Neoproterozoic section, where, as I say, we have all these couplets of source and reservoir. We have seals in there. Talk a bit more about that. We have structure from the compression of this, and that compression happened about 550 million years ago. So this is not a new thing. Looking at the stratigraphy, so here's the Kalahari sand. So that's where you squash in the late Cretaceous, the Tertiary, and the Quaternary, all in that section there. We get into the Jurassic, into the Triassic and Permian, and that's all, to us, is part of the first 700 meters of cover. Then we get into the interesting stuff. We have a black shale marker, a very well developed black shale, which used to be thought of as Cambrian, but most recent work is suggesting this could be the Silurian hot shale that is seen all across North Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. So that makes it very, very nice. It's a very good seal to the stuff below and a possible source to the plastics above. Moving further down, you move into this Damara, the Atabi carbonates, where we see stromatolites, algal buildups, and mounds. So good reservoir. There was a well that intersected this, which flowed about 1,000 barrels a day of water on test without any stimulation. And going down through that again, you come to these tillites. Now you're going to see tillites cropping up more and more. So we have basinal shales in here, which are good source rocks. The oil that was found in the Atosha 5-1A well, which is the only well that intersected these prior to Recon's wells, was tied back to a carbonate source. And the only place that can come from is down here, basically. So we have two repeat sections, basically, the Abinab and the Sumeb of these Atabi carbonates with potential reservoirs at the top and shales above, creating a perfect scenario. You may wonder whether rocks such as these have ever actually produced oil effectively. There are oil fields of this age in Oman, in China, in the Sichuan Basin, and a couple of other places as well. So it's not unheard of. Of course, it's a bit more risky because the oil has to have stuck around for quite a while, but that's perfectly within the realms of possibility. So I mentioned that Monitor uses these specific techniques. This area is covered by very good quality aerogravity and magnetics, which is a great start. There's very limited 2D seismic. What you see on the map in the middle, this is 18,500 square kilometers, and those two surveys are all the seismic lines they are, 1969 and 1990. So interpreting the gravity and seismic, you come up with some structures. There's also a legacy geochem survey, and this is ethane concentration in the soils there. You can't see the very small dots showing very low concentrations. Your eyes obviously drawn to the big ones. So we have some structures, we have some associated geochem anomalies, and then we have this colored map underneath, the reds and the blues. That is a passive seismic map. Now, at Tullow, we used to use passive seismic in the mode of depth conversion, velocity detection, basement, depth to basement conversion, that sort of thing. But what Monitor do is you look at the impact of the passive waves traveling through hydrocarbon-bearing reservoirs. They modulate the frequencies in that data set and allow you to calculate the probability of hydrocarbons at a specific point on the surface. So we've gone and surveyed this area and discovered that we have high probability of hydrocarbons immediately underlying the structures that were previously mapped on the gravity and seismic data. So we find that pretty compelling. We have acquired some of our own 2D seismic. You'll see a line after this. And we're about to embark, as I said earlier, on about 200 kilometers of seismic later this year. We have these three areas of interest that were identified and covered with passive. This is the best one where things match best. We don't have any seismic to create quality maps in this area, but we see some evidence for high probability around the structures we've mapped and some high geochem, but they're not all in the same place. But this is the really interesting area. This one closure is 144 square kilometers. So the trend is absolutely enormous. We see good support on the geochem here, both in that area and to the east. We don't have seismic there, so we can't see that. But our passive seismic is also supportive of there being a good probability of hydrocarbons in the subsurface here. So when you take all of these blobs that we've mapped and you put in the reservoir parameters that Netherland and Sewell used for Recon to the east of us, this is what you get. You get an unrisked recoverable oil of 7.6 billion barrels or 32.7 TCF. Given the nature of the basin and the age of the hydrocarbon system, we're not exactly sure whether we'll find oil or gas. We think we've got a good chance of finding oil, given what Recon have seen, but we will see. So here's the map you saw earlier, and this composite line goes from all the way in the north. This is the Angolan border up here, down here, along here, and down here. And the numbers correspond to these numbers here. This is a fallen compressional feature anticline in the middle of our block, basically, setting up this trend, which is a very large and broad feature. If we were able to go and acquire 1,000 kilometers of 2D seismic, we might be able to get more definition on that. We're going to focus on this area to the south, where we've already acquired this one line, which showed us that we have a pretty low risk structure at this lead 4 in the south here. Sorry, the number 2, the lead 4. I must remember they don't match it. So this is here. It was tentatively mapped on the gravity, but now we're much more confident that we have a structure there. And as we come south, you see it's stepping up into this feature here. We know that just to the south of us, the top of Tavi is at about 60 meters below surface. So there is a very massive fault between just over here and here, creating a good opportunity for traps here. The reduction in data quality is because we have shallow lavas in the subsurface in this southern area and calcrete layers causing some disruption. So that's the Owambo, or sorry, our acreage in the Owambo. If we move eastwards to the Recon block, they have much more seismic than we have. They've acquired about 2,500 kilometers of 2D seismic using Polaris's weight drop source. And they have mixed imaging. In some areas, they have very clear imaging of this Damara. And this is the same layers as we've been talking about, where they see these very large anticlines in their basin. And that's in this area, which is in the middle of their blocks, basically, next to this igneous intrusion, the very large igneous complex in this area. So our only concern for Recon is that those igneous intrusions have had some impact on the reservoir quality in this eastern area. But what they have seen in the wells that they drilled is reasonable reservoir quality in these carbonates, even in this environment. So we await to see, because Recon have recently published this their lead database, prospecting lead database. They've got 28 TCF in place, or 2.3 billion barrels in place in their inventory. And they're going to be drilling, multi-well drilling program in early 2024. Second quarter 2024, hopefully. We're obviously very interested in the results that they get of this because it has a direct impact on us. We're just exploring just off the screen to the left.